Are you looking to take your stylized lighting and rendering game to the next level in Blender? Here's some simple tips to help you achieve that. If you're like me, you have this common problem where you set up your lighting in a way that looks nice with this soft diffuse lighting, but then you realize you have all these additional noisy specular highlights. This is common because Blender uses physically accurate lighting. So where you place a light, you get the diffuse, glossy, and specular highlights all in one, which makes them very hard to control artistically. But there is a tip. So if we take one of these lights, for example, what you'll notice down here in the light properties panel is you actually have different channels for different parts of the lighting. So we have diffuse and glossy. This is great because this allows us to control the contribution from specular and or diffuse like a 2D artist. So a great way to think about this is actually to think about painting light as though you're a 2D artist. You can paint in the diffuse lighting the way you want without having to worry about specular. And then later on, you can come in and place your specular highlights exactly where you want them artistically without having to move the diffuse light itself. So how do you do this then? It's very simple. All you have to do is come in here, and if you look around here in the eyes, if we just put that back to 0, what you notice is now I only have this single catch light in the eyes. This is great. This is a cleaner render. So what you might be asking now is, well, that's great, but how do I get the specular lighting back in? We can do it one of two ways. The first is by creating another light where you want, and then just to turning the glossiness up and the diffuse down. That allows you to place the specular highlight exactly where you want. And the second example is what I have here is actually using a sphere reflection probe. So what that is a capture of the lighting in the scene. Now I'm using the Eevee render engine. So in Eevee, to get these nice specular highlights that are showing up on the model without any lighting, I need to actually bake a lighting source in the scene. So what I've done is simply put this 3D object in a position that shows up in the camera angle I want and just put an emission shader. So when I bake it, it'll show up in this reflection that you can see here. And it adds a nice little subtle touch without adding additional lighting to the model. A few extra tips are to add nice subtle rim lighting. So the way I've done this is I've just used a fill light created from an area light behind the character. It's very simple and effective, but adds this nice silhouette to the model. And what we want for stylized rendering is readability. So readability means it's easier to process the forms of the object that we're seeing. That's what makes stylization so beautiful. And the second last tip is to use a color scheme that pops really nicely. So I've gone for this nice rich purple to pink contrast that really sits nicely with the human skin tones. And lastly, sometimes you just have to add fog. And then sometimes you don't need it. You can just have a simple background with a fill light, very subtly illuminating the background. The background is a simple curved mesh that I put in the scene that has a purple color and just picks up the tiniest amount of lighting just to add some nice dynamic gradients to the scene. And these are simple lighting tips that can help improve your stylized lighting in Blender. Thanks for watching.